everybody, today we're going to talk about the top 5 dangers of singing. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so singing really isn't dangerous, but there are some things to be aware of, and there are ways that you can wear your voice out or form bad habits. So the first one to be aware of is singing with too little energy or compression. I'm sure we've all heard of over singing, but there is such a thing as under singing. And in my long history of being a vocal coach, and also in my own practice as well, and mixing with many different singers, I found that under energized singing is actually the most common one. It's the more common out of the two, over and under. Yeah, over and under. And what it kind of looks like is somebody who it might not be that confident. They might not be warmed up properly. They might not know the song properly. The song might be a little bit too hard for them. They might just not be in the mood that day, or they might not have the right techniques to execute that song. So they kind of, all right, it's like this. Imagine that you are running a race and there's hurdles and you have to jump over each hurdle. Now, when you run up to a hurdle, if you slow down, you are not going to be able to jump over that hurdle. What you need to do as you come to the hurdle, you need to keep going. You need all your energy and then you can jump over it. So under energized singing is kind of like you are going for a note, but then right at the last minute you're backing off because of some reason. So energizing the voice properly is really important. I found that everybody has their own kind of level of energy when they're singing that's tailored to them. Some people sing with less energy and that's fine. Some people really need to energize the voice a lot more, and more energy does not necessarily equal louder. Absolutely not. So you can sing quietly but with lots of energy. So for example, if I was just to whisper something, if I was to say something quietly, like, hello everybody. Now that's lacking in energy. There's no energy in that. Hello everybody. It feels like I'm just about to fall asleep or something like that. I can do the same thing, but I can energize it. Hello everybody. Hello everybody. There's loads of energy now, even though it's not louder, you see? Compression is loosely related to that. It can be to do with compression, but we will move on from that actually. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So number 2, too wide, singing too wide, which normally results in shouting. Okay, so we talk about this a lot on this channel, narrow versus wide. Now, it's not just something that you say, it's an actual tangible, real thing, singing wide or narrow. And I'll give you an example, all right? So as you're going higher, if you're kind of like, this is gonna sound terrible, but if you sing like this, la, right? It's wide and it doesn't sound very good, all right? And when I got to the top, I had to like push more and kind of shout, all right? Now, if I sing narrow, la, sounds better. It's easier, it's more efficient, and I didn't need to shout. Now, singing wide and narrow doesn't have to be so esoteric. So what you can do, you can practice, we'll just take that very simple scale, right? Put it into a thin space by using a narrow vowel, okay? So something like, I like to use a nin, right? Nin, 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 and then you put the wider vowel over it onto the narrow path that you've created. It's still here in the boundaries of narrow. It hasn't gone and that's when you have to start shouting. And then you lose the compression as well. But if you lose the compression, that's when you usually start having to shout. What happens there is if you're singing too wide, you end up over singing, all right? So adding too much energy. as you go along in your set or in your practice, the vocal cords start to thicken and swell, right? So then you go hoarse, you have to sing even louder, or your voice just gets airy and the loose air kind of just chafes the vocal cords. So it's a really good idea to learn how to sing on that narrower kind of line. It's a good safe base to have, and then you can do your big vowels, but with that in mind. Number 3, singing for too long. Okay, this is also a little bit clickbaity, but hear me out. All right, so firstly, if you have created a nice stable base with your singing practice and you're singing the right genres for you, you're singing at the right levels for you, the right energy, everything's kind of flowing and it's all working for you. Technically speaking, the more you sing, if you're an hour into singing, your voice should get more and more warmed up, more and more comfortable. It should feel better, right? But there are exceptions to this. One of them is if you are singing very, very intense genres like rock or metal, or if you're singing very, very challenging material that has high notes, big notes, belty notes, stuff that's slightly out of reach that you're working on, then you're going to need to take more breaks, okay? So a good analogy is if you think about if you're somebody who goes to the gym every day, okay, and then one day you decide that you are going to do a sponsored walk, right? And you've got to walk for hours and hours and hours, but you're already quite a fit person, you're going to find that walk pretty easy. You're going to be able to do that all day long without really getting tired. But imagine if you were doing a sponsored run. So something that's harder, that takes more energy. Even if you're really, really fit, you are going to get tired if you're running all day. So it's the same with singing as well. So anything that's strenuous or anything that's kind of, you haven't got the perfect technique for it yet, you haven't found like the safest, most efficient way of doing something yet, so it's kind of a little bit strenuous, just make sure that you don't sing for too long without taking a break. Maybe do some vocal exercises, like some cool down kind of exercises. I like to do like operatic type sounds because it relaxes the vocal cords and gets blood flowing and things like that. Number 4, singing without a warm-up. Now again, if you have good practice and healthy technique, blah, 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 all of that, you can go straight into your singing. If it's not too hard a song, not too high, whatever, just go straight into it and sing it and you're gonna be okay, like 9 times out of 10. But the thing is, if you are working on songs, if you're learning songs, or if you're practicing a set list, or you're doing sort of challenging material and you don't warm up, you can get kind of trapped in an unhealthy mechanism. It's happened to me, and you know, I've just gotten straight into singing the songs and then something's not been quite working, might have been singing too wide or something like that, and then you kind of get trapped in that mode and then you start over singing. So what I'm saying is the warm-up is kind of like, yes, okay, it stretches the voice out, it gets blood flowing to the vocal cords, it gets the breathing in alignment, gets the energy flowing, gets the air flowing, all of that warms the voice up, like physically speaking, and mentally gets you prepared. But it's also like, so singing, so all right, so warming up, it's like, it's aligning the voice. It's kind of like pre-aligning the voice. Now this can be done with exercises, right? But actually I prefer to do it with songs that I know always come out well. And for some reason, those particular songs, have a handful of them, they suit my voice, they flatter my voice, I tend to get into the right character or the right sort of voice, the right coordination, the right tone. You know, and some songs just basically work for you and you kind of don't know why. Like the songs sound good on you. Like it's like wearing a piece of clothing that particularly suits you, you know, and it's to do with the shape of it, the colour, the fit, this, that and the other. And it's kind of like that with the songs. It's something to do with the way the melody goes here, the vowels, the this, the that, whatever. And also the character of the piece that you're singing as well. So you kind of like, yes, it's warming up physically, but it's also, it's creating alignment in the voice and creating the right character and the right tone. If you don't do this, it can be very frustrating when you start a set or you start recording or your songs or whatever, and it's kind of not working, and it's hard to kind of pull it back then. So just start out on the right footing first. Last but not least, singing with no stretch, and this is kind of related to number one, baggy vocal cords or flabbiness, all right? The vocal cords are designed to stretch as you ascend in pitch, right? Now, you are not always going to want to have stretched out vocal cords on the same pitches, like it's always the same amount of stretch for everything. There's leeway, it depends on your type of voice, like what character you want to create, what sort of tones, blah, 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 blah. But in general, as you get higher, it gets more stretchy. So a good analogy is if you take a guitar, so if you play this E here, right? This is an E. And I'm playing it on the thickest string, right? Now I can play this same note on a different string. Is that the same note? It is, isn't it? Yeah. So now I'm playing it on this string. You can see how much thinner that string is compared to this one. Okay. Now why would I play this note here? It sounds awful. There's no resonance, right? If I play it here, suddenly there's resonance. So my point is, when you are singing high notes, you want your vocal cords to be thin, like the thin E string on that guitar, and not thick, like the thick E string on that guitar. You will find that the more you train the stretch on the vocal cords, the better the tone and the resonance and the colour will be. This is a concept that not everybody knows about, and it tends to blow people's minds. When I start doing lessons with people and we start to train the stretch, usually straight away we can do it as well. People are like, whoa, it's so much easier to sing high and it sounds better as well. And it's more energy efficient. You know, you remember this is how it's linked to number one. If you are singing too wide, it's linked to that as well. The stretch is related to that sort of narrow singing. And it doesn't mean that you have to sound like you're singing narrow. It's just that everything feels narrow here. So exercises or just, you know, bits and pieces that you can do just to train that stretch. It's really worth learning about that, finding out about it. How can I train the stretch, right? So you can start off with kind of opera-y sounding head voice slides, ooh, that sort of thing, right? It's like a choir boy. I like to call it choir boy voice, or in an E as well. You can feel it going up and down like that, stretching out, right? And then what you want to do is bring some chest voice into that. I actually find it better if you start sort of in the middle rather than really low. The G, there's a reason that you hear all over YouTube singing exercises that involve G, G, like low larynx and then high larynx, bratty, nays, ins and all of those. There's a reason for them. It comes from the school of thought that says, train the stretch, you know, train the narrowness in the voice. And I totally buy into that because no, it works. And then you can kind of move on from it and create different sounds. But it's good to start with that. So the G's Goo, goo. Low larynx, so it's dopey. Goo, 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 goo. Even make more of stretching. Goo, 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 goo. Here it stretched on that top one. It went goo, goo. The vocal cords are stretching like a bow, right? If it doesn't stretch, it would have gone goo, 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 goo. That would have happened, or I would have had to yell, but I'm not going to do that right now because it's just so antisocial at this time of night. Gig is a good one. I like a gig. Gig, 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 gig. Hear that? Stretching, right? It's worth doing. I hope you enjoyed those, and I also hope that you don't think I'm a massive bossy boots for telling you that singing is dangerous. And it was just a fun title, but I hope you got something from it, and as usual, drop your questions and grievances with my teaching methods in the comments. Thank you. Bye.